Well, I'm back again, this time with LEGO G1 Soundwave. Now, this is actually my third LEGO G1 Soundwave. The first one, I believe, was uploaded in one of my slideshow videos, and wasn't very good, in my opinion. It was back when I was working in a much smaller scale, but was actually way too big for that scale, so it was kind of an awkward one. Then my second version, which I believe I have in another video, which was, I think, an update I had made at one point. A picture of a stud.io render, which, yeah, that one was built after Scorn and was made to scale with him. But then I went on and built more in that scale, and he ended up being, well, a bit too small for my tastes. So this is my third attempt, and I think definitely my best. And he is considerably larger than either of the two previous versions, and just scales a lot better with the other creations I have made in my G1 aesthetic now. So yeah, and I think in his cassette player mode, he looks pretty nice. He is just a kind of a brick. I do like how just this isn't really smooth. There's a lot of lines, as you can see, where like bricks are, but I like how everything just fits very nicely into this sheer edge. And it's got the border and the border. And obviously if you look from the back, it's a little bit less clean, because obviously that's where the arms have to hang out, and not much you can do with his arms. I'm sure there's a way to have them be a little bit cleaner, but I'm fine with how they are now. So yes, he does obviously have the opening cassette door, which is 3x4 and fits 2x4 cassettes, like Laserbeak here, who tends to hold a little bit too tightly to the jumper plate, which holds them in there. And as you can see, that's the space you're working with if, for whatever reason, someone wants to build more cassettes for this. That's the space you're working with. I have two cassettes for him, which are just Buzzsaw and Laserbeak. That can happen. But he, as you can see, these ones are chromed on Laserbeak. These are just silver. That wasn't intentional. I just made a mistake when ordering pieces, but yeah. Now, those aren't his only accessories. Obviously, he does have his guns, which I'm sure some people will probably be annoyed don't have a place to store. You can store this one, kinda. If you come back here, you can just sort of plug it onto here. But then you have the issue of where do I put this one, which you can't even plug it into its pig in robot mode just because there's a lip here now. So yeah, there's not really anywhere to put this one, so I don't really like storing the other weapon in there, just because then, you know, it just seems weird that he stores one but not the other. But yeah, that's about it for this mode, so I guess it's time to transform him. So let's get into that. You just want to swing back around to the back and take his arms and just bring them up and out of the way. This is important for how you're going to do his legs. Because now, you want to just take these bits and fold them back. And then you can separate his leg from the torso and swing it down. Now, his leg transformation is easily my favorite part. And obviously it doesn't really have a lot of competition, because obviously the arms just kind of fold out and the head folds out because it's Soundwave. But I do really like how I made these legs work, because when you swing them back and down, you rotate them, and you'll notice that he has these anti-studs facing forward. And they're not gray like they're supposed to be. You can fold those up. And that's because when you swing out his foot, you then snap that off of these jumper plates here, which they peg into, and this starts to rotate forward. And you have to bring this back for now. This continues rotating, this folds over, you fold the foot forward, this folds back down, that folds back down, and now you have a leg, which is rather simple, but I really like it. It makes the gray on his leg the same gray that was on the front of the boombox, which isn't technically how it's supposed to work. Like, it's not like that's not like a intended way for him to transform, but it's just a nice way to have the gray on his leg without having the gray breaking up the blue on the cassette mode. And it was also a trick I used on my smaller one, the one before this, but I just did that in a much more complicated and less smooth way. Obviously, this does mean he does have this kibble on the back of his leg, which I'm sure will annoy some people. Personally, it's not really that annoying to me. It's not, it doesn't look good, but I'm fine with it, really. It gets the job done, and it allows for the transformation to just be rather smooth and easy, which I just really enjoy about this guy. So, yes, enough of that. Let's swing out the arms, as you kind of expect from a Soundwave. And they just come down, and you can bring out his foot. And not foot, his hand. It's the opposite of a foot. And they're on rather tight connections, so they can be a bit stubborn, and if you squeeze too hard like that, you can just explode the whole thing. That's just because, obviously, a stud friction like this, you need a good amount of leverage to get it to work, and you're relying on leverage that can pop right off if you push too hard on it. So yeah. And usually, obviously, that is less of a pain, but, you know, I have a camera between me and it, so that makes things difficult. But yeah, then you just fold up his shoulder pads, and now you can get him to stand. And you can kind of get what I mean when I say he's rather easy to transform, because you're basically done already. Okay, now all you have to do is just fold up his head, and add in his guns, which one just pegs onto there, and the other just pegs onto his hand. And now you have Soundwave in his robot mode. Now, obviously in this mode, you can still open his cassette drawer and take a cassette, in this case Buzzsaw, and just stick him in there, which is a much easier than on my other version, which I didn't actually make a video for, so you wouldn't know. But yeah, and you can also then take his other cassette, Laserbeak, and transform it, the very simple, usual Laserbeak design, and that can actually peg onto his shoulder, like that. But yeah, let's get into articulation. Now, at the shoulder he has a ball joint, which can come up, come forward, and this is on a hinge to allow for better movement, so you can bring it up like that. Then he has a ball joint at the elbow and a swivel at the wrist if you want to use it, though it's a bit stiff because it's obviously on a stud, and stud friction can be stiff. So yes, and then at the head he has it's a bit tricky because it's just on the armature, but you can rotate it like this and get him to kind of look up or look down. Then you have a waist swivel, which is rather smooth, and then you have ball joints at the hips, though they don't go, he doesn't get a full spread just because of how his thighs are shaped. Then at the knees, he's got another ball joint, which can also serve as kind of a thigh swivel, though this little panel here can get in the way. Then at the feet, he has an ankle tilt, which is actually a byproduct of transformation, and then he has a slate toe joint, kind of. Or I guess that's mostly more of a whole foot joint. So, yes. Now, if you want to, you can actually bring his arm up and peg Laserbeak right up onto there and get the nice kind of typical Soundwave pose And yeah, the ball joints on him, mixel joints, are not 100% stable, just because this is a little bit kind of reaching the max of what you can do with like mixel joints. But yeah, he also has, as long as it's a bit tricky to get him to stand sometimes, but once you line it up, he does stay standing pretty well. There you go. You can get him in a classic Soundwave pose. So yes, that's about it for him. I'm really happy with this guy. Obviously, I'm having trouble standing him here, but when you don't have a camera in front of you, he is just kind of a nice action figure almost. And he's just rather sturdy. He doesn't have like any kind of like, other than his wrists, he doesn't have like any kind of fragile transformation joints. And he's just like a very nice thing to mess around with and transform back and forth. And I'm very happy with how much he visually changes from the cassette mode to the robot mode due to how his legs work and how it just goes from this big brick to a very nicely defined robot mode in my opinion. And I also really like the head design I got, which I'll just do a quick close-up on. Which I just think looks really nice. So yeah, that's about it for him. I'll see you again next time with another creation.